And good morning again, everyone. Thank you for that last hour. That was for me. Saturday, November the 26th, 2025. Good old 710 KNUS for Great Talk Radio. The weather, and by the way, the roads are horrible, and sit close to a warm radio and stay there. 31 will be all we get today, and light snow will continue. 12 degrees tonight, 29 degrees on Sunday, and 37 on Monday. So let me reset this. So Adam Walker, morning show producer, comes to me and says, hey, I got this book called Family of Spies. So he said, he gave me the paperback. And I always take books to the gym and carry books around with me. It's an old habit. So I started to read Family of Spies. And I went, it's almost improbable, but it's true. And please say good morning and welcome to 710 KNUS. I hope I do this correctly. Christine Kuehn, I think. Christine, do you pronounce it? Do you pronounce your last name Kuehn?
I do pronounce it Kuehn. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. And then your husband. Introduce your husband to us, please, if you would.
This is Mark Schiponi.
Hey, Mark.
I could actually introduce myself if you need me to. All good, Peter.
Hey,
Thanks.
brother.
Good morning.
For the folks in the audience, obviously, and I urge people to read this, you had no idea this was coming. And it begins where you get a letter from California, from Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
It actually, that's kind of how the whole drive toward finding out the truth went. But the whole craziness started back in 1987 when Chrissy came to me and said, hey, you want to go visit my Aunt Ruth? Her dad had called her and said that her Aunt Ruth, who was her dad's older sister, had just moved within a couple hours of Columbia, South Carolina to Charleston. And Chrissy was thrilled because her dad didn't talk much about her family, about that side of the family, his brothers and sisters and grandparents. So we drive 2 hours, we knock on the door. Aunt Ruth greets us at the door. She lives in this retirement community with her husband, and she's just this stunning 72-year-old little old lady grandmother type. So the conversation's lovely. Toward the end, Chrissy sees a picture of a young couple on a table next to Aunt Ruth, a wedding picture, and she just says, are those my grandparents? And Ruth just nodded her head yes. So Chrissy, being Chrissy, can you tell me anything about them? And she just nodded her head no. And finally, Chrissy's pushing, please tell me something. My dad doesn't tell me anything. And so finally, Aunt Ruth just kind of stiffened and poked her finger at Chrissy and said, don't ask any more questions. Good life. Don't ask any more about your family, the past, or Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor.
And why Pearl Harbor,
that was
right?
crazy.
God.
Yeah. And so, and then back to, life tumbled forward, right? Mark and I ended up getting married. We were a young couple with 2 little boys in diapers. And I get this strange letter, and it's from a screenwriter. And the letter is asking me all these questions about my grandfather being a Nazi, being involved and living in Hawaii and spying for the Japanese. And I was floored. I was like, I have no idea where this is coming from. So I call my dad, and we talk about it a little bit. And he's like, I read the letter. He's like, oh, man, that must be the wrong people. They have the wrong Kuehns. And I said, okay, well, Dad, I'm going to do some research to just make sure. And I ended up, going and with Mark, and we started thinking about how we were going to research this and figure it out. And about 10 minutes later, I get this call, and it's from my dad, and he is just sobbing. I mean, Peter, I had never seen my dad cry like this, not even when my mom passed away when I was 18 years old. And he was just, kind of almost a basket case. It took a while for him to really get through, but over, the next 45 minutes or an hour, with a lot of tears, he finally told me his whole story and the truth about his family's hidden past.
I mean, it was amazing because I think all of us, myself certainly included, you put yourself in your place. You're like this, and you don't look the part, physically, just seeing you for the first time, and you find out your family is from Berlin, and you are half, I don't know if you say half Jewish or genetically Jewish, and that you have a family member who's a lover of Joseph Goebbels. Now, you can't take all that at just one shot. I mean, that really, that had to dust you. I mean, for real. Tell the story tell the story about Joseph Goebbels.
Yeah. So what's really interesting when you think about it, Peter, I'm not half Jewish. So to give you a little bit of background, my grandmother, Friedel, had two relationships with two separate men prior to marrying my grandfather, Otto. My uncle Leopold was the result of one relationship, and my Aunt Ruth was the result of a second relationship. And that her father was Jewish. He was a Jewish architect in Germany. And so when you think about, the family, they got involved with the Nazi Party. My Aunt Ruth ended up going to a big party with her brother Leopold because Leopold, went to a party with my uncle Leopold because he worked for Joseph Goebbels in the Office of Propaganda. So they went to the party. She met Goebbels. They hung out, and they ended up having an affair. But after a while, they realized that there were some issues, right? Because my Aunt Ruth was half Jewish, and the Nuremberg laws were going into effect.
1938.
So Goebbels had to get rid of his misdeed. Yes.
And so we figure when they first got together that. Sorry, Peter. Go ahead.
No, please, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, we figured that when they first got together, Goebbels had no idea, of course, that Ruth was half Jewish. And then once he found out, it's like, well, now what do I do? The Kuehn family was high enough up in the Nazi Party that he couldn't just disappear them.
No.
So that's when he came up with this plan to he knew Japan, their future ally, was looking for Caucasian spies in Hawaii, and he came up with this plan to send them to Hawaii to spy for the Japanese.
The book is Family of Spies, and the family is here. But what I think is interesting when I got to the part about Goebbels and how they were so shame-based if they had anything to do with Jews. And so I could just see Joseph Goebbels panicking. He would not want anyone to know that he had a lover that was Jewish. And so I think that, and I'm asking that as a question, was that the motivator to ship the family out to Hawaii to get rid of them?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think he looked at what was going on, and he figured my grandfather Otto was a part of the Goebbels faction in the Nazi Party. So when they tapped him on the shoulder to go spy for the Japanese in Hawaii, I think he knew that he was going to take the whole family, and he took Ruth with him.
Can you sit still for a second? I'm going to do a quick turnaround, sell something, and come back. It's Saturday, everybody, November the 26th. The book is Family of Spies, 303-696-1971. It's bad roads and 31 degrees, and stay right here. Dig this. Here we go. 710 KNUS. Saturday morning, November the 26th. He's going to say it here in a second. Crying. Get ready. Dig this. Three, two, one. Dig this. 31 be the high. We got light snow. Roads are bad. 12 degrees tonight. Wonderful guest. All's well in the world. It's a Saturday. And again, get the opportunity to speak about Step Denver, coloradogives.org. It's again a slash coming. You know, it is that time of the year when people want your help and the time that people make donations. And I go back to Bob Cote, and it was Step 13, and now it's gone on to Colorado Gives Day, coloradogives.org/Step Denver. Every day, men walk through the doors of Step on Larimer Street, right in front of Coors Field, and make a commitment to gaining sobriety and work and accountability and recover from addictions and rebuild their lives. I've seen miracles happen. The stories are unbelievable, but they're true. Step Denver, a proven solution. I can tell you the men are worthy of your support. This is Colorado Gives Day. It's December the 9th. Step Denver is counting on people like you to invest in men who are investing in themselves. Step makes a real change and makes it happen. Every dollar you donate will be turned over $7 of impact. Think it through so they don't take government funding, and your support means that much more. Don't wait for December the 9th. Make your tax deduction donation today. coloradogives.org/StepDenver. Don't wait for December the 9th. Make your tax deductible donation today. coloradogives.org/StepDenver. Our guests are terrific, and as I mentioned, Adam gave me the book, and we get a lot of books, and I started reading. I said, honestly, Christine, I thought you made this up. It did, because it starts out, and it's like, I know that's a true story, but at the same time, you're saying this could easily be a novel. And listening to you folks talk about this, but it's important. You know what I did not do right is talk about your childhood, because it's pretty, away from this story, your childhood doesn't fit into these people at all, does it?
No, not at all. I grew up in Florida with my mom, my dad. I had a couple half sisters and a half brother, and we lived a pretty normal childhood. Went to school. My mom was a school teacher. My dad worked in insurance, and he coached my softball team. I mean, we were fairly normal, middle class family. Going through life. And, I didn't know anything. Only thing I really knew about my dad's past was I did know he had been born in Germany and he had lived in Hawaii. But he had told me that his father had passed away. One time he told me it was a car accident. The second time it was cancer. So he changed up his story now and then. And that he had a sister that the only family member he had alive was living in New York, and it was his sister Ruth, who was older than him.
When people look back on their own families, now this is pretty drastic, but everybody has something hidden away, don't they? I thought about that. And there's something that nobody knows about, or a relative that nobody knows about. But this is major league. This is so intense. And so how old are you when this starts to come apart?
I'm married with two young boys. Mark and I are married. So I was in my early 30s the first time I ever learned about the family secret.
So, again, finding out that you have a relative that was a lover of Joseph Goebbels, and then he discovers that your relative is part Jewish. They got to get rid of her, and they send her to Hawaii and make a deal with the Imperial Japanese. Tell that story.
You want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. The story behind her grandfather, Otto, who ends up being, we find out being a high-ranking member of the Nazi Party, so high up that he actually interviewed for the role of head of the Gestapo.
Yes.
So, just when you think it can't get any more tragic for Chrissy. We keep finding out these little tidbits. So what we pieced together is.
And by the way, if you would, you injected in the book, Reinhard and Heydrich plays out in this. Talk about Heydrich's part of this as well.
Sure. So on the Otto gets summoned after they join the party. He's got a background in the secret naval police. So he gets summoned to meet with Heinrich Himmler for an interview for what would become head of the Gestapo. It wasn't quite that then, because this was 1931. On the train with Otto is a gentleman named use the term gentleman lightly, but Reinhard Heydrich, who is also up for the role of head of the Gestapo. He's kind of a down on his luck guy who just joined the huh?
Yeah, I'm going along with it. Yeah, I know his life.
He had just joined the SS a few years earlier.
He didn't even have the money for the train ticket, right? I mean, my grandfather paid for his ticket to Munich.
So, another weird tidbit. So the interview, Heydrich gets the job, and I think as a lot of people know who study World War II history, Reinhard Heydrich was nicknamed the man with the iron heart by Hitler. He was just, his hatred of the Jews was just feral, all-encompassing. He was the architect behind the final solution and the concentration camps, and Dachau was the first one. So, it wasn't a great job that her grandfather was up for the role of. But we bring that up to kind of make the point that he was very high up in the party. So when Goebbels finds out that Ruth is half Jewish, again, you can't just kill the family.
Wow.
So they line Otto up with a job spying for the Japanese, in which they'll be paid $1.5 million, the equivalent of, over the next 3 years. And they're really just supposed to lay low, but ingratiate themselves, kind of be sleeper spies. But they don't really do that very well.
No, I mean, they actually, are supposed to just kind of get to know the community and build friends and trust in the community. But my grandfather Otto and my grandmother Friedel didn't really do anything low key. I mean, they hosted lavish parties at their home and at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. They invited military to come from Pearl Harbor to come to the parties, and I think really to kind of get them a little tipsy, so maybe they would talk a little bit more about number of troops they had and things like that. So he would spy. He started spying for the Japanese and collecting intel, which everything went through the Japanese consulate at that time. Anything he found, he would take to the Japanese consulate.
I'm a World War II reader, history buff, and there's been always conversations on how many years did the Japanese imperial staff plan on attacking Pearl Harbor. And there's a great trivia question about the final exam for the cadets at the Japanese equivalent of Annapolis. And one question was on the test, how would you attack Pearl Harbor? And it went back into like 34, 35. They're asking these young men, how would you do it? And this just verifies it. What year did the family go to Pearl, and when were they started to get paid to keep an eye on the fleet? What year was that?
That was 1935.
35 is when they cut the deal. Go ahead.
See how long ago that they actually are planning on coming at Pearl Harbor. And I thought, as a sidebar to my other books, you make the point. What is it, 5-7 years before Pearl Harbor? They're paying off the family. And they were paying them significantly, were they not?
They were. I mean, it didn't all come at one time. They would get, 14,000 here, 5,000 here, but over the time they were paid almost $1.5 million.
How were they told, Christine? How were they told that they're going to go to work for the Imperial Japanese? How did the Germans tell them?
They met with a high-ranking Japanese officer in Berlin. They cut the deal there, and then Otto and Friedel sailed to to New York, then through the States, and then to Hawaii to kind of see what they were up against.
Right.
Then onto Japan.
Yeah, they went back and forth to Japan a number of times to meet with people and meet with Japanese leaders.
I mean, that story alone, going in and out of Japan and then going back to the island. And then the part came, and I've been billboarding your book, they're sending messages to the submarines at night. And I thought, then I've read a lot about the midget subs but these were they were submarines that came into Pearl Harbor. It was before the nets were across, and they're talking by light, correct? They're talking by flashing each other.
It's kind of, I mean, you're right. It was really two separate stories. There were a lot of stories written in the 40s and 50s that were very sensationalized. So we found books that had her grandfather and Aunt Ruth as the masterminds behind the attack on the Japanese, who were signaling them from, to your point, from the house in real time from their house overlooking Pearl Harbor. That wasn't really true.
No.
Their house didn't overlook Pearl Harbor. It was on the windward side of the island, which is the eastern side, far from Pearl Harbor. But they were supposed to signal the Japanese subs or boats, whatever was offshore, with this signaling system that was detailing ship movements in and out of Pearl Harbor.
And the Japanese wanted to know, and again, it makes the case, how many years the Japanese are actually planning, if they have to attack the American Navy at Pearl Harbor. And I thought that was a real...
Yeah, they were in it for the long haul.
You bet. And I thought that was a real interesting sidebar in your book. Oh yeah, more evidence of exactly what they were planning to do. People talk about bad relations. All you got to do is read the relationships between the Imperial Japanese and Adolf Hitler's Germans. I mean, they were at best worse. But we talk about Winston Churchill and Joseph Stalin. You want to see a relationship? The Germans under Adolf Hitler and the Japanese under Tojo. They were raggedy, but they delivered them up, which I thought was fascinating. Again, take some time and talk about how they were able to do that.
Well, I don't think it's much different. They were planning it. Certainly her grandparents had no idea what the denouement of this whole. What do you mean? They had no idea what the denouement of this whole operation was. They knew lay low, take some orders. So they really didn't know. Otto didn't know what he was supposed to actually do. Kind of bring this to a head until probably 6 weeks before Pearl Harbor, when this Japanese spy Takeo Yoshikawa, who went to Etajima. You're talking about basically the Japanese Naval Academy. He went to there. He graduated number 1 in his class. Yeah. He would actually scout Pearl Harbor by jumping into the water a couple of miles from Pearl Harbor, swimming at night, breathing through a reed as he got closer to check if there were submarine nets. To your point earlier, how deep Pearl Harbor was. So this guy was a master spy. So 6 weeks before December 7th, he goes to Otto's house on the far side of the island over the Pali Highway, delivers $14,000 and says, basically, the consulate would like to see you. Come on up to the consulate. But at that point, the sleeper spy had been activated.
What a story. I mean, and of course, they don't know that Pearl's coming. There's only a handful of people that do, but it's coming. How long before, when they bring them out to meet, how soon does Pearl Harbor happen after that?
Well, that happened. Yoshikawa came to the family's house about 6 or 7 weeks right before Pearl Harbor. So that's when he was supposed to start testing two-way radios. Yep. That's when he started creating that signal system that you spoke of earlier. So that's when they knew that it was imminent. They knew it was and yeah, they knew it was coming at that point, just didn't know the exact day.
Well, the spy Yoshikawa actually, before he met with her grandfather, not met with your dad, but had a quick conversation with your dad.
My dad's in the front yard because they had a bunch of chickens, so he's feeding the chickens, and Yoshikawa walks up the driveway, if you can call it a driveway, dirt road, and says, asks him if he's Mr. Kuehn, and he goes, no, that's my dad, and that's my dad, and so my father goes and gets his dad and brings him out, and they go into a shed for about 30 minutes and have a conversation, which he doesn't know what happened there, but he does know he showed up at the house.
Well, what's so hard for me, by the way, this is remarkable. Family of Spies is the book, and these folks discover midway in their lives that their family is not only involved with the Nazis, but then involved with the Imperial Japanese. One of the hard things for me when I was reading the book was, how do you do that? I mean, money's money, but how do you sell out your country? And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Do they really have allegiance to this country? They're German nationals, are they not?
Right, they're German nationals. So my grandparents did not have an allegiance, obviously, to the United States. I think my dad did. I mean, he came over when he was 9 years old.
Yes.
And he, his formative years were here. He went to school here. He was living an idyllic childhood. When I would talk to my dad about his time in Hawaii, he loved it, and he felt like that was just one of the best times of his life. So I think of all the family members, I think he was the one that had the strongest connection to the United States, and it shows when he decided to walk away from his family when he was only 15 and stay in the United States when everyone went back to Germany.
Do you guys think that they passed, I'm trying to think, secrets to the Japanese that were any involvement in what did happen at Pearl? Did they give them any information that really was detrimental and helpful in the attack?
Well, the FBI had an 800-page file on the family that we went through. It's at the National Archives. So they were doing something. Now, did they catch them red-handed with anything before the bombing? No. Yeah. So there are FBI reports in that file that detail several meetings being observed with her grandfather going into the consulate with a satchel full of information. Mm-hmm. The informants that they talked to spoke of payoffs and the idea that they were certainly loyal to the Nazis. And they were getting letters from their uncle Leopold that was basically, I'd just say, strengthening the fact that Otto and Friedel were pulling for the Nazis and for their son Leopold as they were storming through Europe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even some of the letters would talk about the future under the Fuhrer and what that would look like for them. Yeah. And, when my father refused to go with his mother and his sister and his little brother to an internment camp in Crystal City, Texas, she was livid. She was just distraught. She actually reached out to Leopold to try and, save my dad, right, and get him to come to an internment camp. So there was a lot of jockeying back and forth. And, they ended up, Friedel, my dad's younger brother, Hans, who was younger than my dad, and my Aunt Ruth, actually went back to Germany in the last prisoner exchange of the war. So they were definitely aligned with Germany and were always planning to go back.
In information from another book that I've read recently was about when the FBI catches the spies that are put ashore by the Germans. And catches may be an interesting term. Certainly one of the put ashore German spies gave everybody up. They executed them. I mean,
they did.
No, there wasn't. I mean, I say no too quickly, but there wasn't even a trial. I mean, there was a hearing, but FDR said kill them because they wanted that known. If you come here and try that, we're going to kill you. And I think there were 7 or 8 of them. I forget how many. But they killed them. And I thought, Why didn't that apply to your relatives? Do you wonder?
That's a great question. In that case that you're talking about, where the submarine saboteurs,
that was it.
Two submarine loads, one landed in New York, the other landed in
Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida.
That's
where
right.
we lived
That's
for
right.
a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
So her grandfather, not to skip ahead too much, but it didn't apply to her grandfather eventually, because he was tried before a military tribunal. They found him guilty, sentenced him to death by musketry.
Yep.
But immediately in the Justice Department, there were concerns that I don't know if a military tribunal, A, has the authority to sentence him to death under these circumstances, and B, even has the authority because his spying happened before we declared war on Japan. So it's a time of peace, technically. So when the submarine saboteurs landed, were captured, they executed 6 of the 8 of them almost immediately, to your point. The Supreme Court took that case up and said, basically, you know what? Time of war, military tribunal's correct, so you can execute. But what that meant was her grandfather shouldn't have been tried by a military tribunal.
And he shouldn't have gotten a death sentence either, because the harshest sentence you could do for spying in a time of peace was 50 years hard labor. And so his sentence was commuted to 50 years hard labor, and he went to Leavenworth.
But again, the intensity of all of it, we're going through this horrible upheaval in our country today, and this young NG is killed and everything, and it's about people in the country, and all of these things will be discussed. But I really, really, really started thinking about you guys last night, knowing I was going to talk to you, but reading the book and saying, when they caught those guys off the shore of the United States of America, up the Atlantic side, they killed them. I mean, and it was FDR's decision to kill them. He said, they're dead. And then here is this family, and really, is it fair to say that only the 2 adults knew what they were doing? Did anyone else know what they were doing?
Oh, yeah, my Aunt Ruth did.
Did she know?
My Aunt Ruth, yeah, she knew. She was actually probably a really good asset for the family. She was young, she was beautiful. Okay. She would date, some of the young military officials and sailors, and they would wine and dine her. So she built relationships, and I'm sure gleaned information from them about troop movements or number of, ships in harbor. And both her and my grandmother Friedel, actually opened a hair salon that would be frequented by military wives who would come in to get their hair done and chit chat about where their husbands were. So they were able to get information about what was happening at the different bases from that moment as well.
It was weird that, I was just going to say one little other quick tidbit. During our research, we stumbled on a book called The World's 30 Greatest Women Spies. And in that book, next to Mata Hari, is her Aunt Ruth, the sweet little old lady that we had tea with, in 1987. So it was hard to process this femme fatale super spy, her aunt, with this nice little old lady that served us tea.
Mata Hari. That's great. The other part of it is when I thought about it, what is it that they could actually give to the Japanese? I mean, because it was really it was a surprise attack. It was well planned out, but was there, better way to say it, information that was given by your family that actually turned the trick at Pearl Harbor?
Well, that's a hard question to answer, because a lot of the stuff that on Pearl Harbor Day, a lot of stuff was burned. But like my grandfather would tour around. The cover of the book has pictures of the planes lined up at Hickam Field. Yeah. And so he would take pictures and send that to the Japanese. You take it to the consulate, who would then send it to Tokyo. So I'm sure they took some of that information to get an idea of what the bases looked like, because they hadn't seen them, right? So they needed to know how were the planes lined up, where were the ships in the harbor, So I think some of that information was collected not only by my grandfather but also by Yoshikawa. So that information together kind of gave them a layout of what the island looked like.
And had they, reading the books about it, At Dawn Must Have Slept is probably the best. They didn't come back, and at the same time, they didn't know that the aircraft carriers were not there, and they went ahead with the attack. And to their surprise, the carrier fleet wasn't there. The battleships were there, but the carriers weren't there. And we read that stuff. And a guy named Gordon Prang wrote that book, and it's probably the best book about Pearl. But they themselves, the Japanese themselves, and I wondered, now that I've read the book about your folks, or your family, pardon me, that they didn't have that info that, oh, the carriers are here, the carriers are gone. I need to sell something. Stand by, please. 710 KNUS, the book is Family of Spies. I'm Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS. Hang on, it's cold outside and it's nasty. Roads are bad. Stay here. Good morning, everyone. It's a Saturday, the 26th of November, and now the streets are just 29th, I'm sorry, of November. Now the streets are just wet. The sun's out in 2025. 710 KNUS. 31 will be the high today. We'll see 29 tomorrow and Monday, 37 degrees. Great guest. Open lines coming up in the next hour. So before you hit the slopes this season, and now with snow coming, make sure your skis and snowboards are ready. Resorts are seeing excellent snow conditions beginning. The right gear makes the difference. That's why you should stop at Larson's Ski and Sport. Again, you're westbound on I-70. Get off on Kipling. Come back under I-70. Head south on the right-hand side. 7 days a week, a big wooden box store. Top quality Larson's has everything you need. John and the team, Jack, John's son, everybody, the experts, and dedicated to helping you get the most out of your fun and get the most out of your runs and get the most out of the mountain. Unbeatable. These are the easy locations to serve you. Larson's, the perfect stop on your way up or down the mountain. Look for the big wooden building. And again, south, get off of your coming home, coming eastbound on 70. Get off on the Kipling exit, stay right, hit Kipling, head south, look to your right, there it is. The big wooden building, 7 days a week. Tell them I sent you. Larson Ski and Sport. Remember to rent. Rent skis, rent snowboards for your kids and grandkids, because you know what? Next year they're going to be much bigger and they won't fit anymore. And that way you rent again. South of I-70 on Kipling. You can talk to them 7 days a week. 303-423-0654. Look at the web, LARSON, larsonsport.com, 303-423-0654. Final couple of moments with Christine and Mark in the book, Family of Spies. I know the book is now in hardback. Real quick, Christine, where can folks get the book?
You can buy it online at a lot of your local independent bookstores as well. You can also go online and buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. There are lots of places you can find Family of Spies.
I've seen it as well on a lot of websites, so and it's really worth your read. Come back. So now what happens to everybody now that they've been arrested?
Yeah, so the day after Pearl Harbor, in the middle of the night, the FBI come to the house and they bang on the door. My father tells me he wakes up to his mother screaming as these men come into the house, and they take my grandfather Otto, my grandmother, my Aunt Ruth, and my dad, and they drive them back across the island, and they end up on an internment camp on Sand Island, which was where they kept all the internees, and they stayed there for months as the family, everyone in the family, was being interrogated by the FBI to try and get a better idea and understanding of what they knew about, everything that was involved and what Otto and Friedel and Ruth had been doing for the last few years.
And indeed, and then also they start to round up, they called them the Nisei, the second generation Japanese, but what a lot of people overlook, they rounded up Germans and Italians as well. But
exactly.
But when people always seem to leave that out, that the Italians and Germans were grabbed. So were they put in the camps along with Japanese, or were they just simply put in detention camps?
No, Sand Island held everyone. It held the Japanese, the Italians, and the Germans that were there. My grandfather, my grandmother, and Ruth were on the Nazi watch list. In the event that we went to war, they were supposed to be round up. So they had a list of people, and everybody was in the same place. It was just like a coral spit in the harbor where they kept everyone. My father was there for 5 months, celebrated his 16th birthday on Sand Island, and they were interrogated, frequently by the FBI, and eventually Otto kind of cracked, I guess you could say, but he ended up writing a full confession, whereas Ruth, Friedel, and no one else in the family ever said anything. Of course, my dad didn't know anything, but Otto ended up writing a full confession, which led into him being tried and convicted.
But even though her father didn't know anything, Peter, he was 15, and there's FBI memos that basically say he's to be interned because he's as dangerous to the parent country as his parents.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. You know, people don't realize, and again, perhaps many do, but when you read about that first 1942, this country's back was on the ropes. The United States of America was in a lot of trouble in that time period right after the attack on Pearl Harbor. And if you really read the papers certainly of the general officers and admirals, and then, of course, the civilians as well as FDR, we were in trouble, were we not?
Well, I think it was the unknown, right? I mean, we were in the middle of building, a great superpower, and I think that we were in trouble for sure because we didn't know where it was going to come from. I guess, right? Is it going to come from the Germans in Europe? We've now been attacked by the Japanese. I think it was the unknown, and that's probably as frightening as anything. Who'd have known? Who knows what would have happened if the Japanese had attacked us on our own mainland shore, right? But you're right. It was definitely a scary time for everyone with war permeating every area of the earth.
As Prang said, had they come back, or had they done something else, a second wave or a third wave, things would have been a lot different. And again, how close did the country come? And historians are still arguing about that. But it came close, did it not? It really, really did.
It did.
So,
well, that fear is what had thousands of innocent Japanese incarcerated, certainly in Hawaii, but on the mainland. And there was just that fear of, we don't know what's going to happen, so we're just going to cast a wide net and make sure we're protected as best we can.
The largest percentage of the American population did not even know where Pearl Harbor was. And they were focused on Europe because that's where the attention was. But all of a sudden, there it was, wasn't it? And so what ultimately does happen to your dad? I mean, your poor father, what pressure that must have been, what stress that must have been to carry that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I mean, when he walked away from his family at 15, he knew, I mean, he would never see them again, right?
Yeah.
The family went back to Germany. His dad was in Leavenworth, and so he graduated high school. He ended up denouncing his German citizenship so that he could join the U.S. Army, and he ended up fighting in Okinawa and then again in the Korean conflict. So, I think that was a really difficult decision to walk away from your family. But he set his life on a different course, and he set my life on a different course. So I'm very grateful for that.
So ultimately, where did your grandfather die?
So my grandfather was in Leavenworth. Short story long, I guess. They actually, after the war was over, he wrote to the adjutant general and asked to be released because he felt like his trial was not a fair trial. And so they looked at everything and they said, okay, we're just going to deport him. We're going to put him on a ship and take him back to Germany because a lot of the spies were being sent back to their home country.
We got 30 seconds. We got 30 seconds.
So
if you would.
He ends up going back to Germany in 1955, and in 1956 he died of cancer surrounded by his family.
What a story. What a great read. Family of Spies. Christine, thank you guys. Thanks for doing the show with me. And Mark, thank you. And happy holidays. And thanks for doing the show, man. It's a great read. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Thank you. All right, everybody. On the other side, we're going to do open lines. Many things in the news right now. We're talking off air about what's going on. 303-696-1971, the so-called consequences of history, or the unconsequences. Bush and Cheney ultimately hold responsibility for that Afghan being here. Let's talk about that part of it. And then also Joe Paff coming up, this new conservative caucus, and he's on the show in its final hour. Everybody hang on. Lines are open. 303-696-1971. I'm Peter Boyles. Hold on. It's a Saturday.